Welcome to the CoinGecko podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Young. Each week, we will be interviewing someone from the blockchain industry to learn more about this fast-moving cryptocurrency economy. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The CoinGecko podcast is produced each week to help you stay ahead of the curve. Show notes can be found at podcast.coingecko.com. I highly encourage you to join our newsletter where we send out top news in the crypto industry every Monday to Friday. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter and Telegram at CoinGecko. Welcome to the CoinGecko podcast. For today's episode, we have the honor of welcoming Aaron Gong, Director of Binance Futures. Binance Futures is one of the largest exchanges for Bitcoin futures trading volume and open interest. At this point in time, data on CoinGecko shows that Binance Futures has over $3 billion in daily trading volume and over $300 million in daily open interest. It is the second largest derivative exchange for BTC perpetual futures by trading volume on CoinGecko. Aaron, also known as AG, leads the development and growth of the futures arm, which has attracted billions of dollars of daily volume on average since its launch in September 2019. Prior to joining Binance, Aaron worked at CME Group, launching new products in the APAC region, including Bitcoin futures, and achieving significant revenue growth from proprietary trading clients during his time there. He also previously worked at a New York-based hedge fund and a Dutch market-making firm. Welcome on the show, Aaron.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Bobby.
For the first question, we would like to know a little bit about your personal story. When do you first hear about Bitcoin and how do you get involved in the cryptocurrency industry?
Well, sure. I heard about Bitcoin either from media or friends when it started to get public attention in the early 10s probably. However, I had held a skeptical view at the beginning and become a pretty late adopter when CME launched Bitcoin Futures. I was deeply involved in the launch of Bitcoin Futures on CME, through which I started to get a better understanding of the product and the crypto industry. Meanwhile, one of my friends was one of the founding members at Binance. He made a strong influence on me and eventually inspired me to join the industry.
So, if you don't mind, can you share a little bit of your experience working at CME Group and how was it like launching the Bitcoin futures there? Was it a big thing in CME? What was the feedback that you received from institutional clients when you were doing the Bitcoin futures back in CME?
Sure. Before CME actually decided to introduce Bitcoin futures, it had been kept to a few top executives at the firm. And it was also a surprise to many colleagues when it was announced internally. And it was certainly a big news to both the traditional and the crypto industry back then, as it's the first time crypto products launched by the largest regulated exchange in the world. And the market quickly reacted and the Bitcoin price broke 20,000 shortly after. And actually, we were on a pretty tight schedule to prepare this product and the launch. And one of the key challenges to onboard institutional clients was that the product size, because it was designed as 5 Bitcoins per contract, at the price of 20,000 multiplied by 5, plus the requirement of paying 50% or more margin, it created some barriers even for institutionals to adopt it at the beginning.
Cool, man. Yeah, I remember the time when CME launched. I was really surprised that a large exchange like CME were actually looking to Bitcoin. But I'm very glad that the CME guys did what they did, and obviously CME and CBOE launching Bitcoin futures was a big move to get institutional investors invested into Bitcoin, or at least be aware of it. And I think with the move for CME, we can very safely say that Bitcoin is now definitely an asset class that is large enough for institutions to look into it. So tell us a little bit about a story. How do you get from being in CME to joining Binance as the director of Binance Futures? You mentioned very briefly earlier that one of your friends was working in Binance. Maybe tell us a little bit of how the Binance team courted you to join as the director of Binance Futures.
Right. So as I mentioned previously, I knew one of the founding members at Binance, and he made a strong influence on me, and was the main reason I eventually ended to join not only Binance, but also got me into the crypto industry. And back then, when the opportunity was presented to build a futures platform together, I immediately realized it's a chance for us to reshape the entire industry. I was super excited to be part of the Binance team.
And I read somewhere that when you joined Binance, CZ passed you the Blitzscaling book written by Reid Hoffman on your first day of work and told you to read it. I believe the entire Binance team is practicing Blitzscaling with this rapid launch of many products. Can you maybe share a little bit about how is this Blitzscaling culture personified in Binance and some of the strategies that you guys are using on Binance Futures?
Yeah, I actually read Blitzscaling twice, and Binance is certainly one of the successful examples from Blitzscaling as well. And for Binance Futures, it's more like a Blitzscaling project within an established firm. And to get it right, we had to make sure that we build the right product with the market fit and had the right strategies. And that's why we devoted lots of resources to launch BTC contract first. And it was the only pair for a fairly long time. However, the strong growth on the BTC contract gave us a strong confidence in terms of product and market fit validation and also our business strategy. So that's why now we are adding more pairs at a much faster pace and applying all our successful experience from BTC contract to each of the new pairs.
So you mentioned that you ran only Bitcoin trading pair on Binance Futures for a very long time. So I remember you guys launched in September 2019. How long before you start launching your second pair, which I believe would be the Ethereum trading pair?
It was around like 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm. So it was, I guess, late November or so when you started launching Ethereum. And now you guys have 13 pairs, I believe?
Actually, 15th pair by today.
Wow, congratulations. And I guess the plan for 2020 would be to add more pairs onto Binance Futures, I suppose?
Yes, certainly.
What would be the criteria for adding new coins or trading pairs onto Binance Futures?
Well, basically, we are looking to add the top 20, 30 pairs to start with. So basically, whichever is the most liquid 20 to 30 pairs, then we will consider them first.
Okay, so basically liquidity on the spot market would be a prerequisite before it gets added onto Binance Futures.
Correct.
Interesting. So here at CoinGecko, we observe a huge growth in derivative offerings offered by crypto exchanges in 2019. We started tracking derivatives last year and added a total of 25 new derivative exchanges, including Binance Futures last year. At this point in time, we track over 370 different derivative contracts offered by the various exchanges. For me, 2019 was a year which was defined by the growth of the crypto derivative markets. Why do you think there was a huge growth in crypto derivatives in 2019 all of a sudden? This is not exactly a new thing considering that BitMEX has been around since 2014. So why 2019 was the year that we saw huge growth in crypto derivatives?
Well, personally, I think the rise of derivative exchange in 2019 was due to the year-long bearish market the year before in 2018. And because futures contract is one of the most efficient tools to capture investment opportunities in either bearish or bullish markets. So it was driven by the demands of the community to either hedge the positions or better manage their risk. And it was not a sudden growth though, as futures trading is slightly more risky and it takes time to design and build a good product in order to better protect the users. And to take Binance, for example, we launched in September 2019, but we had been planning on building the product much earlier.
I mean, building a derivative exchange is a lot harder than just building a spot exchange. Like some of the different tools that needs to be worked on would be the risk engine and the insurance fund, as it's a lot more risky to build a derivative exchange. I mean, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how Binance Future operates its risk engine and how does the insurance fund work on Binance Futures to protect other traders against socialized losses?
Well, sure. So basically, we have a very solid risk engine and take other strict measures to protect our users. We adopt a very smart liquidation mechanism of Binance Futures. And when the margin level hits the liquidation level, the system will liquidate one open position at a time and check the margin level in real time. If the system detects the margin level is higher than the liquidation level, the liquidation process will stop. So users can basically keep the remaining positions and also margin. So speaking about the insurance funds, so by nature, it should not be in the interest of the users to, like the case in many other exchanges, design the interest to grow the fund size uncontrollably, as the exchange will be tempted to monetize the insurance funds and treat it as an additional source of income instead of a real protection mechanism for users. And in such cases, those exchanges will be incentivized to adopt aggressive liquidation practice, and which are often too punitive on bankrupt traders. However, on Binance, we use the insurance funds for what it is intended. In the event of sizable liquidations, our insurance funds accept the risks and the liquidated positions. And it has taken significant losses to ensure that clients do not receive ADLs, or on the several occasions, our insurance funds have seen net outflow of 1% to 2%.
I mean, when we look at insurance fund, we always compare it against BitMEX, which has this huge, gargantuan insurance fund. I think the last time it was reported, I can't remember what it is now, but I think BitMEX has over 30,000 Bitcoins, or more than $300 million in their insurance fund. I think you rightly pointed out that this creates a bad incentive for BitMEX to always let traders go bankrupt because it adds into the insurance fund. Do you have any thoughts about BitMEX insurance funds and compare it against Binance, for example? Why do you think BitMEX even needs such a huge insurance fund? And what do you think BitMEX should do with that insurance fund? It's huge.
Well, actually, before we started to create our product, we did a lot of research on our competitors, especially on BitMEX. We know our users actually had frustrations on their platform due to largely because of the overloads problems, system overloads, and also the risk management system particularly as well. So that's why we made improvements based on what we think can increase and improve the client's user experience. For example, BitMEX, they use fill and kill order to overtake positions from liquidation for insurance funds. We use fill or kill, means there are a lot more chance for us to take hit from liquidated positions instead of pass it to ADL. So we put a lot of efforts to prevent that, and the results has been speaking louder as clear. It works, and it really protects the users from many volatile period. That's why our insurance fund has seen the net outflow of 1 or 2% on a daily basis very occasionally. And more importantly, I would say our insurance fund is the only insurance fund to really take a risk and take positions.
Just out of curiosity, how big is your insurance fund these days?
For us, right now, we've got around 13 million USDT in insurance funds as far as I remember.
All right, cool. So how does margin work on Binance Future? Is the margin for each trade isolated, or is it cross margin on the entire portfolio, including Binance Spot, or is it just against portfolio balances in Binance Futures?
At this moment, we offer both isolated and cross margin model for Binance Futures, but not portfolio margining across the futures and spot at this moment. The cross collateral feature does provide the users the option to use asset in their spot account as a collateral to borrow USDT at 0 interest and trade on Binance Futures. And this feature was actually launched yesterday.
Oh, wow. That's very new. How does the fees trading on Binance Future compare that, and we compare that against the fees on Binance Spot Market?
Well, so the fees are pretty competitive because due to the leverage nature, right? So in general, our volume requirements for each VIP tier is slightly higher, but the fees are pretty competitive, especially for our taker fees. But conceptually speaking, we are offering fees as the one source of product instead of two separate exchanges, because for our spot market, our taker fees are very competitive, and it applies to our futures exchange as well. So we also offer very competitive taker fees.
And what would be the maker and taker fees on Binance Futures at this point in time?
So for example, VIP 9, the maker fee is 0 and the taker fee is 1.5 bips with discounts of BNB.
And if I'm not a VIP9, I'm just an ordinary small shrimp trading on Binance Future.
Then it would be not small shrimp, I would say, okay. Any clients can grow from, any big client grow from 0 first, right? So that's why we pay a lot of attention and care to our VIP 0 clients, and this is definitely a very important user base for us. And for VIP 0, we charge 2 bips for maker and 4 bips for taker.
All right, it's very interesting. That's very fair. So I'm just curious. I'm just going to ask this question for the benefit of some listeners. So if I'm a retail trader, why should I trade the perpetual futures on Binance Futures versus trading it on the spot market on Binance Spot? If someone's interested in leverage, one can always use margin on Binance Spot to trade it. I guess on Binance Futures, you get to trade up to 125x leverage. Yeah, do you have some thoughts on why someone should trade Binance Futures instead of Binance Spot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So basically, our perpetual future has a pretty similar design to spot markets. And so that's why it's easier for spot users to transfer from spot trading to perpetual futures. And it has a higher leverage than margins. And comparable to margin, it also has benefits without any borrowing costs. So that's the key difference between spot and the margin. And there are 3 key reasons why Binance Futures are more competitive and the users should trade Binance Futures. The first one is we offer most stable and fastest matching engine. And the second one is we do have a very liquid spot market. And thirdly is we are offering multiple choices of trading pairs. As far as today, we now have 15 pairs, which probably has surpassed many other exchanges at this moment.
So Binance recently shook up the crypto derivative markets by offering 125x leverage in trading. Do you think offering a very high leverage is sort of irresponsible from platform operators in encouraging bad behavior amongst traders, as it will be very easy, especially among retail traders, to get wrecked?
Well, we started with 20x, if you still remember. Then our users started to complain and say, okay, why don't we offer higher leverage? That's why we introduced a 125x leverage. We always listen closely to the voice of our community. And I also suggest the users treat the futures with caution, and that conservative users can select as low as 1-time leverage to trade futures. So having said that, we have established various mechanisms to protect the users and ensures the users do not suffer significant losses when trading highly leveraged products. And this includes the position limit for 125x and also our smart liquidation model.
Do you see Binance Futures increasing this leverage in the future, like from 125x and following the FX model of offering 300, 400x leverage, for example?
Who knows? As far as I know, the users are pretty happy with this leverage. But once they are not satisfied, probably we would consider that as well.
Who are the main users trading on Binance Futures? Are they mostly institution, large-scale traders, or small-time retail traders on Binance Futures?
Well, I would say it's a little bit both. So from the very beginning, we are striving to target both the retail and institutional clients. It was reflective from the design of our products as well. So we offered 120x and a referral program to attract the retail users. And we also offered a cross-collateral and also market-making program to attract the institutional clients. So we have pretty good balance in terms of the presence from both retail and institutional clients.
And I noticed on Binance Futures, there are only perpetual swaps currently listed there. Do you have any plans to offer fixed timeline futures, for example, monthly or quarterly futures as well?
Yeah, certainly. Actually, they are in our pipeline.
All right. And if you look at the traditional space, CME and BEC, I would say that this is probably one space where the institutional exchanges, the traditional exchanges have been, I would say, faster in moving in the derivative space compared to the crypto exchanges. So we look at CME and back, they have crypto futures, and now they started offering Bitcoin options. Is Binance planning to start offering options as well? Do you have any plans? Will it be under your team or will it be a separate team, for example?
Yes, we've been working on our options product and aim to launch it actually by the end of this quarter.
Oh, it's very interesting that you guys are planning to launch the options product by the end of this quarter. I'm actually very interested. I'm a big fan of options. I actually do trade some options. And I think it's very interesting because it provides a very good hedging tool, especially when it's USD settled. So let's see what you guys come up with. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, that's great. I'm hoping you can be one of our early users.
Yeah. I've been trading on Deribit and lately on FTX on all these option platforms. I think there's a big difference between Deribit and FTX. One is settled to Bitcoin on Deribit and then FTX is USD, which is pretty interesting. So I'm really looking forward to see what you guys are launching. Personally, my preference is a USD settled Bitcoin option. So I'm really looking forward to see what you guys are launching. I think Bitcoin options will be a big thing to see how things will progress.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm also pretty excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Bitcoin derivative space, like in the traditional markets, the derivative market is significantly larger than the spot market. But if you look at crypto, the spot market is significantly larger than the derivative market. And I think that there will be huge growth from the derivative space. So if you were to compare like volumes of growth between Binance Spot and Binance Futures, like what was it like in the past half a year since you guys launched?
Yeah, so I think comparing to the traditional futures derivative market, the entire derivative market volume is around 10x of the total global GDP, or even 50 to 100 times of the spot market, depending on the asset class. And looking at the crypto industry right now, the overall derivative market volume is slightly higher than spot. Probably, I looked into the number, it's around like 1.5 times. So I believe there's a lot of room for the entire derivative market to grow. And eventually it will be similar to the traditional market with 50x or even 100x than the spot market.
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's just a matter of time before derivatives start growing a lot bigger and start driving the price of the spot market and all.
Right.
If you do extrapolate the next few years, like where do you see the cryptocurrency derivative market going?
Well, I certainly think the total market size will be a lot larger, as I previously said. It certainly will grow at least 10x, eventually 50x and 100x than spot market.
And do you see other sort of innovations coming in the derivative space? For example, I mean, you guys have perpetual swaps and then you have future dated monthly, quarterly futures coming on board. Then you have like futures and swaps for multiple different tokens. And then you guys have options. What's next after all these things? What sort of products do you see coming out in the crypto derivative space?
Well, I would say, firstly, whatever has been heavily traded in traditional market will be replicated in crypto market as well. And we will occupy that space and we'll see that happening in very short term. And secondly, we do see the innovations as well because crypto is a very unique asset class. For Binance Futures itself, we pay a lot of attention to innovation. That's why we innovated 125x and also cross collateral. And we are probably the only exchange offering these two features. And we will down the road innovate more features and introduce more innovative products and features to onboard the community and also bring the community more excitements.
I mean, recently Binance made an investment into FTX. I recently ran a webinar with Sam, the CEO of FTX, and we had a good chat about the options product traded there. And we talked a little bit about their MOVE contracts and their leverage tokens. If you look at the MOVE contract and their leverage tokens contract, what are your thoughts about it? Do you think it's a little bit too sophisticated and complicated for the current market, and it's just traded by sophisticated traders in this market? Or do you think the market at this current state is already ready for such trading products?
Well, yeah, we also invest in FTX lately, so they are a good partner. I really admire FTX by the speed of launching new products, and also they did pretty well in terms of innovations on new products. So in terms of the leverage tokens, I also personally paid attention to this product, and they are listed on Binance as well, right? But it always decided by the community. If some community members love this product, some don't. So let's say probably still the early days, but it doesn't matter as long as we keep innovating and launch the right product, we will see the new products being welcomed.
Yeah, I think what the guy, Sam and the team at FTX, they launched so many different interesting products and they're doing it so quickly. And I just don't know if like people in the space, like the retail traders can catch up with them. But I know definitely the sophisticated traders are there. And I think all these tokens that they have is very interesting that they're starting to get on different platforms like Binance, for example. So I definitely think there's a lot of potential there to start growing all sort of interesting derivative products from there as well, from Binance later on as well, I say.
Right.
So Binance made an acquisition of these small derivative platforms called JEX last year. Not so sure if you're qualified to speak about the post-acquisition plans since maybe a slightly different team, but how does Binance JEX fit into the overall Binance ecosystem? I've been observing JEX for some time since its acquisition, and to me, it seems like they're dying a slow death. At this point in time, their 24 hours daily trading volume is about $2.5 million US. Compare that with Binance Futures, which is doing about $3 billion US, which is significantly, this just add 3 extra zeros to the back. I also heard some rumors, I'm not so sure how true it is, that there's some sort of internal competition between the JEX team and the Binance Futures team to compete and win in the derivative markets. Maybe you can share some thoughts on the Binance JEX and what was the plan for the JEX team.
Okay, sure. JEX is a part of Binance ecosystem, and they end the differentiations with their options offering. It's pretty normal to acquire or invest in other exchanges in traditional exchange industry as well. For example, CME acquired COMEX and NYMEX. So it's also making sense for us to acquire or invest in other crypto exchanges as well. As I just mentioned, besides JEX, we also invested in FTX lately to provide the users with more investment opportunities.
So what's the plan for Binance Futures in 2020? How do you plan to catch up against the established players, the BitMEX? I mean, the derivative market is very competitive. One of the things I've observed is that you guys have definitely come a long way. Like BitMEX was by far the market leader, and throughout the past few months, you've been slowly catching up and closing the gap between BitMEX. What's the plan for 2020 and beyond?
So we have had a very strong growth since we launched product in last September, and we are right now around 80% of the current number one derivatives exchange, and it is narrowing down the gap very quickly. There are 3 areas we are focusing on in 2020. Firstly is to enhance the UI experience. Compared to other exchanges, there are a few features that we are still lacking, and we are working to building you optimize the product. And secondly is more innovation. We talked about innovations today, and we are the first one among the other major exchanges to offer 125x and also cross collateral, and we will keep innovating to bring more exciting functionalities to the industry. And thirdly, to regionalize our service. We just hosted a CIS trading competition for Europe, and it was very well participated by the local users, and the results are amazing. And we will replicate this model to a wider range of countries and introduce more regionalized campaigns and service.
Yeah, I heard from your team, like you guys had a trading competition. Was it the same competition that you're talking that is specific to Europe, or was it a global competition? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the competition that you guys had.
So we had one in the beginning of this new year, and that was the global one. Then we launched a more regionalized one, actually 1 or 2 weeks ago, and then it was just wrapped up. So it was more for Europe region. So going forward, we probably will just narrow down the trading competition region and then provide more specific targeted competition. It has better engagements with the local users and better coverage. That's the way we are going to run the trading competition onwards.
Cool. Do you have any questions that you think I should ask you that I've not already asked you yet by now?
Well, yeah, it's been a great pleasure speaking to you today, and I think I'm glad we had this chance to talk about derivatives business. And personally, I'm a big fan of CoinGecko, Yeah, so I think it's all good.
Cool. I mean, lastly, before we close off, like if someone's interested in Binance Futures, where can they find and follow and find more information and follow Binance Futures?
Sure. So you can go to binance.com/futures or download the Binance app on Apple Store or Google Play to feel the vibes of our product. And in the meanwhile, you can either follow Binance Twitter or join our Telegram group to stay tuned.
Cool. Thank you very much. I think I've asked all my questions, and it was a very good conversation talking to you to learn more about Binance Futures and some of the things that you guys are doing. I've been following very closely. You guys are doing a lot of interesting things, and I look forward to tracking the progress of Binance Futures in the months to come.
Likewise, it's been my great pleasure speaking with you, and thanks for listening, for the fans, users of CoinGecko. It's my pleasure, and also I'm looking forward to working with all you guys in the 2020.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that wraps up the show. Thank you for listening to the CoinGecko podcast with Bobby. If you like our show and want to know more, check out podcast.coingecko.com or please leave us a review on iTunes. If you have any feedback, do drop us an email at hello@coingecko.com. Join us for more next week. See ya!
This podcast is provided as part of the overall information on cryptocurrency contained on our website. It's for your general information only and does not howsoever constitute any endorsement, financial or investment advice, nor any solicitation or offer of securities or other financial instruments. CoinGecko and the podcast presenter makes no warranties, implied or express, of any kind in relation to this podcast, including, without limitation, the accuracy and updatedness of its content. All opinions and recommendations therein in the podcast are based on the personal opinion of the presenter. Please conduct your own research and procure professional advice should you, at your own risk, decide to howsoever invest or trade in relation to the content contained in the podcast.